Howdy. I'm making a video because I wanted to show a few different things that are about my gun. But before I do that, now you can see that it's safe. So the first thing that I wanted to give as a kind of an update is I painted the front sight. It just makes it a teensy bit more easy to find it quickly when you pull it out. Now, the second thing, you kind of saw what I'm going to discuss when I put the gun back in there just now. Now, I'm not completely sure what the difference between the two terms is. I've heard it called twisting. I've heard it called spinning. I can't find out which applies to which action. So I'm just going to show you both, and I'll let you research yourself and find out which one is supposed to be coupled with which term. So, spinning and or twisting. I think this is spinning. And I think if I had just finished shooting, which is shooting, if I just fired and I think that's twisting. But like I said, I'm not sure. All I know is I don't know for sure, but from my perspective, I think that there's two main reasons why people would do those two actions. First one, now I don't have the right type of holster for this, but I'm going to do the best I can. Bang. Now that was probably the best I've done so far, but it's still a little bit annoying because if you watch a Western movie, you'll see I'm going to try to use the camera to help me a little. You'll see them do this. Bang. Okay, that kind of helped. Basically what they do is without looking, they pull the gun, cock the hammer back, bang, they spin it they spin the gun 1 or 2 times, and then they spin backward, bring it back, the barrel hits their holster, and it slides in. So it looks like bang, spin, thunk, Now, why did I say that I can't do that? Well, it's going to be hard to show. That my holster basically has the loop, this part right here, separate from the part that keeps the gun. It's a loop, the pouch. If I wanted to do that spin, they have to be connected. So loop, attached, pouch, like that. Loop, gun. That way, when you spin it backwards, because the loop and this pouch part are connected, you can touch this to the loop, and that leads straight in to the pouch. So all you have to do is remember where this is. We'll allow this to tap the holster and it'll slide in. Obviously mine's not made the right way to do that. So then the other thing that makes a difference in that, this is actually bigger than a normal single, and I can't spell, single action revolver. Now I understand that I think there's two reasons why it's big. First, because it's a lot more easy to fit all the parts needed to make it DA and SA when the gun's big. The second reason, this might sound a little bit strange, but it's a cheap gun. Most guns you find, even if it's a revolver, cost roughly about $300 and up. This cost just under $300. So comparatively, by the norm, this is cheap. So they had to use cheap metal, and they had to make it easy to make. So the bigger you make the frame, the easier it becomes to put the things into the gun, because you don't have a tiny area that you're working in. So that's one of the reasons I think why this is big. But that means that it's a little bit more hard to find a holster that will fit, because it's a teensy bit bigger than what most of these would keep in them. So if I were to buy myself one of these designed for, let's say, a single action Colt Army, which is what tends to be used for cowboy movies, that they, from this to this, the Colt Army revolver is probably about this in comparison. Probably. I've never actually seen one in real life, meaning in able to look at it. But I can see the difference when you're watching a video on YouTube and you see people using one. I can compare the look of how big it appears in a person's hands. Watch a video of the Colt here, watch a video with the gun that I own here, compare the two, and realize that this is a little bit smaller than this. So I can see that. Now, the last thing I wanted to explain, and I feel like I didn't explain this because I was having a hard time trying to upload my video to YouTube, was the safety in the gun. I made a comment that I think I never said in a YouTube video. Like I said, I'm not sure if I said it before, my apologies. But I made a comment before that there are 4 types generally of revolvers. And some people, if I say that, they're going to say, "No, that's wrong." Let me explain what I mean. You have safety styles. I just realized that my hat's crooked. Excuse me. So you have the original, the first original Colt. Like I said, the style that was used in most movies. Single action. You have to pull back. You have to do this. If you want to shoot. That's SA. Now, what makes those different than modern guns? If you have a Colt Army, right there, those types of guns have a pin right there, sticking up. That pin, and I'll show you because I found out how to do this a little while ago. The pin was attached to the hammer. Nowadays, it's that. So in modern gun revolvers, the firing pin, which the first time I tried to do this video, I abbreviated a lot of terms I would continue using. So I called the firing pin, sorry, not FT, I called that FP. Then I kept using the term transfer bar, TB. I'll explain what that is in a few moments. Then I kept using the term hammer block, HB. So just so you know what that means before I start using those abbreviations. So, with the Colt, they don't have any safety things at all. Because their firing pin is attached to the hammer, they have to have this hole in the frame. The hole would be right there. Designed so that the firing pin can go through it and hit the bullet. Okay, it was incredibly dangerous. So they progressed, and eventually they found out how to add the hammer block. Like I said, hammer block. They found out how to add that. What is that? That's kind of the same idea as the transfer bar. With the hammer block, what it does is if you pull the hammer back and pull the trigger, but keep the trigger pulled. Keep it pulled back. There's a bar inside the mechanics in here that will drop. So the hammer is here. There is this bar here. When you pull the hammer back, it stays. When you pull the trigger, this, you pull that, it drops. And then this swings forward, hits the bullet, and boom. If you pull back, it's still up, and you don't keep the trigger pulled, this stays up, and it, dunk, it stops the hammer before it hits the bullet. So that's the first safety. The next one is the transfer bar. That it's kind of the same idea as the hammer block, but they work in two opposite ways to do the same thing. With the hammer block, you keep the trigger pulled, it drops. With the transfer bar, you keep the trigger pulled, it goes up. What's the difference? The transfer bar, when the hammer swings, and I'm going to show you the hammer. Because of that little shape to the hammer, if there was no transfer bar, that would never set off the gun. So that shape needs something to fill it. So it's the hammer is shaped like this. The firing pin is this little bump. It keeps doing this and not hitting. It doesn't hit because of this part. It just dunk, dunk, dunk. Doesn't connect. So what they did was they added the transfer bar that fills that space. So now it's not, it becomes So when the pull back and you pull the trigger and keep it pulled, that stays. If you don't keep it pulled back, that drops and it doesn't hit. So that's the transfer bar and the hammer block are both safety things that keep the gun safe if you drop it. So with mine, if I were to drop it, and I've done it, I've dropped it by accident, and it thud, nothing's gonna happen because the transfer bar is not working. So that's single action with the firing pin attached. First one. Transfer bar. Hammer block. So what's the fourth that I was discussing? Well, that is when they used the first one, the firing pin idea, and they just added one of these two. Okay. Not very smart, but they were trying. Okay. So I wanted to explain why I said 4, and then in that video I never explained all 4. Plus I wanted to give you the info on transfer bar and hammer block because I wanted to explain how you can see when your revolver is safe and when it's not. So I will see you next time. Happy trails.